Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, y'all are having a wonderful day today. So, of course, this video that I'm about to release, I wanted to do an edited version of this, but I thought that today I would kind of do a little bit of a different video. This is only going to be a video kind of on my thoughts and not reviewing that of another channel or Fight Hub TV or whatever that is. Of course, many of my videos, they are mainly that of reactionary videos, and I not only put my own opinions in there, but I put other people's opinions in there as well because oftentimes I like to debate and, kind of overall argue certain points, not only about my points, but also their points as well. But that being stated, excuse me, I thought, of course, that I would talk about the news that pretty much has shocked that of the boxing world. And of course, for those of you that have not heard the news, there is going to be a fight. I should say, really, to be quite honest with you, quote unquote fight, because this isn't even a real fight. I believe that this is an exhibition. And the exhibition fight is going to be between that of a Gervonta Davis versus that of a Jake Paul. And this definitely surprised me pretty much overall like that of, anybody else. Now, had Jake Paul eventually actually fought someone that was highly ranked, I wouldn't have been surprised. Of course, as what we've heard in, the background, not too long ago, was that he was possibly going to fight that of a Canelo Alvarez. But, let me also address this because what I was originally going to do for this video is that I was going to review a video by that of a Dante's Boxing Nation and also that of a Boxing Ego. But I mean, what really would the point be? Because we already know basically what they're going to claim. Dante's Boxing Nation, of course, when I reviewed his video or I took a look at it, he basically, of course, was talking about Gervonta Davis. But of course, he could not go throughout the whole entire video without mentioning that of a Canelo Alvarez and comparing Canelo Alvarez and how he almost fought Jake Paul, blah, 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 all this other stuff. But the thing is that, I remember when Canelo Alvarez, first of all, when he did not fight that of a David Benavidez, but then on top of that, he was also possibly talking about fighting that of a Jake Paul. I remember the criticism that he was getting from a lot of these LDBC and new media channels. And it's pretty bad when even a lot of the LDBC and new media channels are still criticizing that of a Gervonta Davis because a lot of those guys are PBC fanboys. But of course, you have certain people overall like that of a Boxing Eagle, for example. I was going to review him, but to be quite honest with you, there's there's no real point because there's no offense against Boxing Ego. And Boxing Ego is someone that I actually think is a relatively good commentator. He's someone that I definitely find to be a way better commentator than that of a Dante's Boxing Nation or an Aki TV. But I mean, there's just no way of getting around it. It's very obvious that Boxing Eagle, with the way that he protects Gervonta Davis, no matter by what turn, either the man is the biggest fanboy of a particular athlete that I've ever personally seen in my life, or he's receiving some sort of paycheck. And I have to assume, just in my personal opinion, that it has to be the latter. There's no way that you're defending Gervonta Davis, overall to that level of a degree, literally everything that he does. And then on top of that, not just Gervonta Davis, but basically any PBC, but mainly PBC Black Star fighter like an Errol Spence or a Deontay Wilder. There's no way that you're going to sit here and tell me logically that he's not receiving a paycheck either from Team Gervonta Davis or from the PBC in some sort of way. There's just no way. Because even some of the other channels that heavily support the PBC, they still even do not support this move. And keep in mind that Boxing Eagle has been shitting all over the Canelo Alvarez and Terrence Bud Crawford fight for how long now? So I mean, the thing is that of course there's a great amount of hypocrisy there, but all that tells me, overall is that once again something else is going on there because there's no way in hell. Even I've seen other guys freak out overall over male athletes before. Like I've seen Shannon Sharp talk about LeBron James in the media, and it's very possible that Shannon Sharp is receiving a paycheck from LeBron James and his team as well. But I've at least even seen Shannon Sharp go against the grain a little bit at times with LeBron James, even though it's like, 2% of the time. I've never once seen Boxing Eagle really criticize that of a Gervonta Davis. This man is always trying to gas this man up no matter what it is. And then at the same degree, trying to shit all over that of Top Rank and also trying to shit all over that of the Zone or that of Matchroom. So, like I've already stated, something has to be going on there. But, excuse me, let me overall talk about this very quickly. Because like I stated, when I reviewed that of a Dante's video, overall talking about this fight, of course he tried to make the contrast of a Canelo Alvarez. But the thing is about Canelo Alvarez is that you can claim whatever you want to about a Canelo Alvarez, and of course we already know that Mayweather, that he fought that of a Logan Paul. But at least those two fighters, they have already kind of made their bones. They've already made their career. People can state whatever they want to about Canelo Alvarez and Floyd Mayweather, but they fought so many A-grade level fighters in their career. Floyd Mayweather did not really take exhibition fights until he was retired. That's why I don't really have any bones about it. Now, am I a fan of exhibition fights? Am I someone that loves watching those type of fights? No, because to me, there's no entertainment value. I have no desire to watch a fight that more than likely where the boxers really aren't even going at full contact, or they're not even going at full blows or full sport. I mean, like, who really wants to watch that? I'm not a fan really of any exhibition fights or any exhibition matches, no matter the sport. I remember, that in tennis there was a couple of exhibition matches at times that Djokovic and Nadal would have, or Djokovic and Carlos Alcaraz would have. And to me, it's just like, who really wants to watch that shit? Nobody. I have no interest in watching exhibition matches where the athletes are really not even going, full, try mode, in the first place. Who really wants to watch that? And that's also, where I kind of have to take a look at this. Are people really going to be super interested in this fight? I mean, I can kind of see where people are going to be interested in this fight, because Gervonta Davis, it's like he's a huge star. And on top of that, I think a certain amount of people will be wondering, will both of these guys actually be going blow for blow? Of course, Jake Paul is going to have a massive size advantage, but Gervonta Davis, in terms of his all-around ability, he's still someone that, is one of the top 10 debatable pound-for-pound fighters in the world. So, I mean, it just is what it is. And then on top of that, he's a tremendous level athlete with a great amount of power. So I think that a certain amount of people, they take a look at this and they're maybe wondering, oh, well, Gervonta can get knocked out, all this sort of stuff. I mean, just my personal take of it, as I've already stated, I don't think, that either of these guys are going to be going full force. I think that maybe there might be a chance that Jake Paul maybe tries to go full force to a certain degree, maybe full contact, and then, if Gervonta Davis feels he's getting a little bit too cute, he can say, okay, I'm going to show you what this power is really made out of. Like, for those of you that remember, there was a boxing exhibition, I believe, between that of Jack Johnson and, like, one of the lighter middleweight fighters, I believe, I don't know how many years ago. Jack Johnson, of course, was in the early 1900s. But there was an exhibition match, I believe. The middleweight fighter eventually got a little bit too cute for his own good. I believe that he tried to hit Jack Johnson with a good right hand. He knocked him down in the fight. And then Jack Johnson said, oh, okay, no problem. I'm going to hit you with a good right hand, and overall I'm going to bop you with one. And that's exactly what happened. And I believe after that I can't remember the fight ended or if he just knocked him down very badly. But the point is, and obviously those guys, they were both two highly trained fighters, I believe, for the time. But the point is that I just don't see overall a reality, in my view, where Jake Paul, he just goes full beast mode on that of a Gervonta Davis. And Gervonta Davis is just not able to react. I mean, Jake Paul, to be fair, he has somewhat built himself up, but he still hasn't really faced any guys that, in my personal view, would really challenge him to prepare him for a fight like this. His last fight, of course, was against a former champion, against Chavez Jr., but, I mean, for any of us that have been watching Chavez Jr. really for the past, I don't know how many years, we know that either A, he has no motivation anymore, or he pretty much has been taking paychecks. Really has been overall like that for the past, I don't know how many years. Chavez Jr. was someone that at one point in time was somewhat promising. He was a champion at the middleweight division, of course, until Sergio Martinez, ended up defeating him and dominating him. And even after that, he still had a little bit of a promising career. But pretty much, pretty much after he lost to Andre Fonfara, I believe that pretty much was about it for Chavez Jr. He really was never the same ever again. I mean, maybe during the Canelo, fight, he was a little bit, maybe trying to be a little bit more. But I mean, he still looked like a fighter that really was not super motivated in order to win that fight. Or maybe he's just not that talented. Probably a little bit of both. But the point is that, Jake Paul has kind of been in there with guys that I'm not claiming that they can't challenge him whatsoever. But I just don't see overall how they would prepare him for a talent as someone that's as athletically gifted as that of a Gervonta Davis. Once again, I do think that this fight overall is going to probably do decent numbers, because the casual fan, they don't really know much about boxing and overall who has more of a chance. And on top of that, a lot of people also don't know that an exhibition fight, that it's really not a real fight. So first of all, this isn't going to go on either man's record, which I think probably for business purposes is probably the best thing to do, because both Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis are both huge assets. Jake Paul is someone that you can still kind of promote and use him for a great amount of marketability. And Gervonta Davis, of course, right now, other than Canelo, is debatably the fighter's, the boxing's biggest star, excuse me, at least within that of America. I'll state that. He's certainly, America's biggest star. But the thing is about Gervonta Davis, the reason why he's getting so raked over the coals in this fight is because, and I understand that many people will say, well, Canelo, he wanted this fight and all sort of stuff, and all that's understandable. But as I've already stated, Canelo and Mayweather, they already made their bones. Mayweather fought guys like De La Hoya and Cotto and he already had a career. He was someone that was a 5-weight division champion, defeated multiple pound-for-pound level fighters and a multitude of all-time great level fighters or great contenders. And then when you talk about Canelo Alvarez, it was very similar. He was someone that already was a 4-weight division champion. Say whatever you want to. You got these guys like Dante's Boxing Nation that try to make the correlation about Canelo Alvarez, but there's no correlation. And the reason why there's no correlation between someone like a Canelo or a Mayweather and a Gervonta Davis is because Gervonta Davis, although he's still held in very high regard, like the way that people talk about Gervonta, especially his major fans, especially from that of a lot of these LDBC and new media channels, you would think overall that this guy, that he had like the career of a Terrence Bud Crawford or something like that. Everyone pretty much knows that Gervonta Davis, that he already does not really have the most extensive resume. Although if you ask his fanboys, that's not the case. Apparently Rolly Romero and, Hector Garcia and Mario Barrios, apparently these guys are championship level fighters in the real deal. But when we take a look at Gervonta Davis's resume, it's no offense, but when we take a look at legit A-grade level names, who the fuck has this man really ever beat? I'm sorry, but it just is what it is. The man ended up defeating Leo Santa Cruz, I'll give him that one. But it's not like Leo Santa Cruz was just this unbeatable fighter. He even lost a fight once upon a time to Carl Frampton, someone who was majorly undersized against him. He lost to that guy in America. So keep in mind that. And I'm not claiming that Carl Frampton was not a great fighter, but let's not just sit here and pretend like Leo Santa Cruz was someone overall that was just this wicked, talent. This someone overall that was just unbeatable. He was a, A- to B+ level fighter, to be quite honest with you. Maybe A-, I'll give him that, because he did defeat Carl Frampton and Abner Mares and a couple of other guys, but he was not someone that, was, just in my view, this all-time great level talent. He was a great fighter, but, it's debatable. But, I'll give Gervonta Davis also the win over that of a Frank Martin. I think that was an A-grade level win, but the problem is that that man never won a belt, and then when you take a look at Ryan Garcia, I mean, even his performance over Devin Haney, which of course was eventually overturned, when we take a look overall at, the fight against Rolly Romero, it's no offense, but if you're getting outboxed by Rolly Romero with a 12-round unanimous decision, there's a problem. If you're getting outboxed by someone like a Rolly Romero, you are not an A-grade level fighter. So when we take a look at Gervonta Davis's career, the problem is that he's taking these fights, he's taking an exhibition fight, and it's like, dude, you're not 26 years old. You're not 23, 26 years old like a Devin Haney or Shakur Stevenson or some of these other guys. I mean, well, actually, I don't remember how old Shakur Stevenson is. But, excuse me. But the point overall is that, overall, at least some of those guys have been pushing for that of the bigger fights. Gervonta Davis, people are getting sick and tired of these bullshit fights to where, first of all, you're fighting against a lot of these B-grade level fighters, and I don't care how many title opportunities Al Heyman gives them with all these vacant titles. When we take a look at the champions that Gervonta Davis has defeated, his fans will sit here and tell you that, oh, no, he defeated, these champions. They're champions, all sort of stuff. Right, but it's like, how did they get those belts? When you take a look at Rolly Romero, the 2 belts that he won off of vacant titles. He didn't beat anybody really to get those titles. He beat Ryan Garcia, but Ryan Garcia's never been an official champion. When we take a look at Isaac Cruz, he ended up beating that, I believe, what was his name? Who did he beat? He beat Rolly Romero. Rolly Romero ended up getting the title off of a vacancy, and he really ended up getting the title, in my personal view, in kind of a robbery-ass fight. I'm not claiming that overall that Rolly did not have his moments, but he was losing the fight on every single scorecard in that fight, and Tony Weeks stopped that fight literally way too early. And he was losing to a fucking 40-year-old and what was his name? Barrasso or something like that? None of us even remember the dude's name. So the point is that, what the Tank Davis fans will try to tell you, is that, oh, well, Tank is defeating all these champions and all that sort of stuff, right? But they're not A-grade level fighters, man. And I'm sorry, but I'm not here to fanboy about any fighters. I'm here overall, once again, to just say things from my perspective. But when you just take a look at Gervonta Tank Davis's career, it's pretty fraudulent. And I'm not someone that, uses that word very often. But I've never seen a fighter that was pushed so highly on the pound for pound list or debated as like debatably the best fighter in all of boxing, and his resume nor his accomplishments really stack up to those types of matters. I mean, I got after Terrence Bud Crawford and in a way for quite a while overall, or at least their fan base, for not probably deserving to be number one pound for pound, at least, for certain. But at least those guys have certain results, like in a way, and Terrence Bud Crawford, although I would not claim that they have the most amount of A grade level wins, they at least have some A grade level wins. Like at least Inoue has Fulton. That fight against Fulton is a lot bigger or has a lot more meaning than any of the fights on Gervonta Tank Davis's resume. It just is what it is. Even the fights against Marlon Tapales. Marlon Tapales is someone that, excuse me, although a lot of people on the surface would claim that he's not an A grade level fighter, in my view, he just makes the cut. I'd say he's A minus. But the point is that in a way, I mean, he's the same age as Gervonta Tank Davis. Look how much more he's accomplished than Gervonta Tank Davis. He's someone that's a four-weight division champion, unified in two separate weight classes. He's someone that, has kind of tried to get some of the bigger names, but not always. It's like with Gervonta Tank Davis, dude, you're about to be 31 years old. And then on top of that, you're like, what, 30 something and no? You're not even rematching the guy against Lamont Rhodes Jr. And maybe this is just Gervonta Tank Davis's way of claiming that he's the A side. Maybe Lamont Rhodes was just asking for too much money. I don't know. But to be quite honest with you, that's just me grasping at straws. But Gervonta Tank Davis has kind of made it clear that his career overall, like, he's not really going after legacy that much. And I'm not someone overall that says that about every fighter, because that narrative very oftentimes is heavily overblown. I've heard that with almost every great fighter, no matter who it is, whether it be Canelo or Crawford or all these other guys. People always claim that they're not going for legacy just because they clearly don't like that fighter or they want to try to diminish their achievements. But when we take a look at Gervonta Tank Davis, I mean, just my personal view, and I don't even think that this is hyperbolic, I've never seen a fighter that was as pushed as Gervonta Tank Davis that literally had no results in his career. I mean, of course, we can talk about other fighters that did not have results in their career, but they weren't as pushed as a Gervonta Tank Davis. Like Andrade, for example, in my view, was always a bit overrated. Demetrius Andrade, and he never beat any legit champions in his career. But I mean, at least Andrade was not pushed to the level of a Gervonta Tank Davis. I get it that, star power doesn't always equate to the results in your career. Just take a look at Ryan Garcia. But that's why I've always stated that Gervonta Tank Davis being in the top 5 pound per pound, how could you debate it? What does he have to put him in the top 5 pound per pound? Does he really have any legit win that would place him in the top 5 pound per pound? No. Does he have, overall this abundance of A grade level names? No. Does he have, is he a champion in 3 or more weight classes? No. And to be honest with you, he's only ever won, I believe, 2 official belts in his career. And one of those belts he eventually won, I believe, because he was the regular champion, and then eventually he was upgraded to that title status. It's not even like he defeated anyone that was majorly big for that weight class in order to get it. And then the other belt that he won was over Jose Pedraza, which is great, but no one is claiming that Jose Pedraza is this legit A-grade level fighter. That's why every time Pedraza is in the ring against an A-grade level fighter, or even sometimes a B-grade level fighter, he always loses against those guys. So the point is that, people can try to contrast this with the Canelo and, all these other fighters all they want to. But at least with Canelo Alvarez, like, it kind of makes sense, because Canelo, although, of course, I don't like how Canelo handled the David Benavidez situation, and I do think that he avoided the David Benavidez fight. But at least with Canelo Alvarez, once again, we can already claim a certain amount of names. Danny Jacobs, Gennady Golovkin, Araceli Lara, Austin Trout, Sergey the Crusher Kovalev, Jaime Munguia, Callum Smith, Caleb Plant, Billy Joe Saunders, Jamel Charlo. All those names that I just listed, you could debate in my personal view as A-grade level fighters. Miguel Cotto. All those fights were big fights when Canelo Alvarez took them. And that's not even talking about some of the B-grade level fighters that he fought. Gervonta Tank Davis has a whole bunch of filler on his resume. It just is what it is. You're not going to sit here and tell me that Rolly Romero is this class level champion. He is not. Well, you're not going to sit here and tell me that, Isaac Pitbull Cruz, who just lost to Jose Valenzuela a couple of fights ago, you're not going to tell me that either of those fighters are A-grade level fighters. They're not. And when we take a look at all the wins in Gervonta Tank Davis's career, Like, does he even have a win in his career that's as big as, say, the win that Floyd Mayweather had over Carlos Baldomir? I don't think that we can. Like, if you were to take away a lot of the big wins in Floyd's career and just put Carlos Baldomir on there, it probably would be a better resume than what Gervonta Davis's whole entire resume is. I mean, no offense, it just is what it is. But you're beating a lot of these B grade level fighters that no one really gives a shit to watch. No one, no one takes a look at Mario Barrios or Cruz or Romero or some of these other guys as A grade level fighters. They're not, and that's why when you also take a look at Mario Barrios, people are saying, well, Barrios is a champion, right? And his last two fights are fucking draws. Like, his draw was against that of a Manny Pacquiao who is 46 years old, literally had not fought in like 4 years, and he couldn't even muster up a win over a 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao. Like, are you serious? And then overall, he ends up fighting, some guy, I don't even remember his fucking name, in his last fight, and he has a draw against that guy. And this is the guy that we're debating is a legit, like, A grade level fighter. Like, get the fuck out of here. It just is what it is. So the point is that, Gervonta Davis, he is going to receive a certain amount of blowback from this because he pretty much deserves it. And I'm not someone overall that, is just hating on Gervonta. I think that he's an extraordinarily talented fighter. I think that he's a very gifted fighter. He's a great fighter, but it's like, dude, come on. Like, at this point in your career, you're supposed to at least have one fight that is like a Vasyl Lomachenko or a Shakur Stevenson or a Devin Haney or a Teofimo Lopez or a Josh Taylor, or something like that. I mean, Jesus Christ. And I'm not claiming that all those other fighters necessarily have fights like that, but when you take a look, at Shakur, he's at least tried a little bit more, in my view, to get some of those fights. When you take a look at Devin Haney, he has fights over Vasyl Lomachenko, George Kambosos, Regis Prograis, and Ryan Garcia. Now, Gervonta Davis had the fight over Ryan Garcia, but, that although that was a huge money fight, no one took a look at that fight and stated that, Ryan Garcia is just the creme de la creme in terms of skilled boxers. When you take a look at that of Teofimo Lopez, he at least has the victories, or he fought guys like George Kambosos. I mean, to be fair, George Kambosos at the time wasn't looked at as a big stud or anything. He was looked at as a decent fighter, but not a great fighter until he defeated Teofimo Lopez. But still, he still fought Lomachenko and George Kambosos and a Josh Taylor. And then recently, a very decent undefeated contender in Arnold Barbosa. Not someone that, overall is necessarily completely A grade or anything, but someone that debatably could be A minus or at least B plus if you want to put him there. I'll personally state this. That win over Arnold Barbosa, you could debate overall has more meaning than any of the wins in Gervonta Davis's career, besides maybe that of a Frank Martin. But I mean, it just is what it is. I know a lot of people that they're not going to agree with that, but I mean, when we just take a look at the reality of Gervonta Davis's career, what has he really done? And that's why, when I take a look at Gervonta Davis, once again, people can try to make the contrast with him with other fighters. There's no comparison. Because when you talk about Floyd and Canelo and some of these other guys, they at least have already made their bones. They already are going to be future first ballot Hall of Famers, and they're going to be guys that have great resumes and great accomplishments. Both Floyd and Canelo Alvarez are both all-time great level fighters. When you take a look at Gervonta Davis, I cannot call him an all-time great level fighter. He does not have the accomplishments. He does not have the resume. And to be quite honest, it's getting to the point to where Gervonta Davis, his career is starting to almost come to a wrap. I'm not claiming that he doesn't have years left, but dude, you're not 26 years old. You're 31 years old, and you still have yet to have any legitimate big fights pretty much in your career, except that of a Ryan Garcia. Like, you got to step up overall the level of competition. I'm not blaming everything on him, because of course we know that Lomachenko turned the contract down. I believe that of last year, and something happened with the Shakur Stevenson fight. I don't know exactly what happened there. But the point overall is that it's not like Gervonta Davis is just chasing after these fights. He had the opportunity to fight Lomachenko many years ago, and he didn't really want to do it. Anytime Lomachenko was brought up around him, he basically pissed his pants. Now, of course, there was rumors about certain deals sent Lomachenko's way. But, I mean, even before the deals, I believe that Lomachenko had called him out multiple times. And by the time that Gervonta had kind of sent a deal, Lomachenko was kind of looking at other targets. Like that of a Teofimo Lopez and certain other guys like that. So, I mean, I understand people's, when they claim that Lomachenko kind of turned down contracts. To be fair, I'd have to do a little bit more research about that. But Gervonta could have pushed for that fight, harder, at the very least, a little bit earlier in his career. He also could have pushed more for the Shakur fight, and he definitely could have pushed for the Devin Haney fight or Teofimo Lopez fight. I've never really seen him ever push for those two fights. He also could have possibly fought Josh Taylor or some of these other guys, or Regis Prograis. Like, the dude has literally fought, like, what names has he ever fought? You know, we can state whatever we want to about Teofimo Lopez and Devin Haney, but one thing I'll give those guys credit for, and also Lomachenko, they at least pushed for some big fights in their career. Say whatever you want to about those fighters, but those guys at least pushed to a decent degree for some big fights. I've not really seen Gervonta Davis do that, at least to a great degree. It just is what it is. But that being stated, that pretty much is about it. You know, I just thought that I would kind of commentate on that. But am I really interested in this? I'm never interested in fights like this really to begin with. And on top of that, this is an exhibition. No, I don't see it. And you know, I think it will do well with the numbers because both of them are very well known. You know, if it's something that maybe is streaming, I might tune in. But to be honest, I don't really have an interest in this anyway because it's an exhibition. And I understand that's probably good for business purposes. But honestly, most exhibition fights, they pretty much are discussed, you know, overall with not going, you know, full on hard with each other or full on, you know, full contact. You know, they might hit each other with some full contact punches, but they're not going 100%. Oftentimes it's negotiated behind the scenes overall, or they're kind of saying that, okay, this is, you know, going to be a little bit more for fun and that, you know, this is going to be a little bit more, you know, kind of just for money. You know, I mean, how many exhibitions have we seen, you know, to where they've just, you know, went full blow for blow? I mean, we've very rarely seen it. And if the guy like a Jake Paul does try to do that, you know, the boxer, all he has to do is really turn it up, you know, and basically state, okay, you know, if you're going to try to get a little bit too cute with me, I'm going to show you overall real power and what real skill is about. And sure, Gervonta is a lot smaller than Jake Paul, but who the fuck has Jake Paul ever fought to really prepare him for someone like this? I understand that he beat someone like a Tyron Woodley and, you know, some of these other guys, but come on, man, like, that's not going to prepare you for someone like a Gervonta Davis. You know, someone who's a bit overrated in my view, but someone that is a legit talented boxer and someone that is legit one of the more powerful boxers in the world, you know, pound for pound. So I don't see how this fight is going to do super, you know, well just in terms of entertainment. I think that a lot of people are going to buy it because I think they get suckered in very easily. But in terms of my personal opinion on it, it brings no entertainment value for me whatsoever. None. There's nothing on the line, you know, overall for either fighter. I understand why, you know, because this is a way to make great money. And then on top of that, you know, whoever ends up looking bad or something like that, you know, you still have their undefeated records. But I think what the main appeal is going to be is that, you know, first of all, Jake Paul, he might get his comeuppance and finally get knocked out or very badly hurt. And that Gervonta Davis, that he might get his comeuppance, you know, at least in a lot of the fans' minds, you know, and that he overall might get knocked out because Jake Paul is a much bigger guy or at least hurt in the fight or, you know, potentially outboxed. But the thing is that I just don't see that happening because, once again, this is an exhibition fight. They're not going to go super hard in the fight. And if Jake Paul tries to, I think that Gervonta A will have the technique and the skills overall, once again, to handle it. And on top of that, even if he does try to overall go full body, I think that Gervonta Davis is going to be able to stop that shit very quickly. He's going to hit him with a few shots, and Jacob Paul's going to be like, okay, you know, I better calm down. So I'm sorry, but I don't see, you know, for those of us that are quote unquote boxing aficionados, this doesn't bring any entertainment value whatsoever. But in terms of the regular fans, what I'll personally state is this: I know what's going on through a certain amount of their minds. I don't think that this fight is going to be as entertaining as what a lot of people try to think that it is. People always get these exhibitions and they expect that, you know, they're just going to go full blast. That's not what exhibitions are for. They're for entertainment, you know, and of course boxing's for entertainment in general as well. But at least in a real professional bout, like, you're going full body, you know, in an exhibition fight, like, there's no reason to, you know. So I mean, it just is what it is. But that being stated, that pretty much is about it for today. Thank you all so much for watching. That's really my opinion on it. I don't see any reason for this fight really to happen, but it's unfortunate. Gervonta, I think, is a very talented fighter, but in terms of a boxing star that has been ranked as highly as what he has, I mean, he might have the most fraudulent career that I've ever personally seen in my life. And it's not, you know, anything personal. You know, I don't hate Gervonta Davis or anything like that, but this is just ridiculous. You're supposed to have at least one humongous fight, at least at this moment in time, at this point in time in your career, and you really don't, other than Ryan Garcia. And we all knew that Ryan Garcia wasn't really shit for a main boxer anyway. He's someone that's very physically talented, but he's not someone that's a defined A-grade level fighter. That's why he just lost to Rolly Romero. So it is what it is. But that being stated, that pretty much is about it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to y'all later. Let me know what you guys think. I might do a live on this later. but I just thought that I would do a little bit of a different video. But that pretty much is about it for today. I'm trying to think if there's any other points that, really I can bring up here. Like I said, I seen Dante's video where he was mainly trying to contrast this to Canelo Alvarez because, of course, he hates Canelo Alvarez's guts and he's trying to, kind of take a little bit of the heat off Gervonta Davis and compare it to Canelo. But like I said, there's just no comparison because fighters like Canelo and Mayweather have already made their bones. Now, Canelo is someone that is still active and not retired. So, of course, there's a little bit more of a problem with it maybe than what Floyd did, but still, he's still someone that you can understand because he's just had too many big fights in his career to claim that Canelo Alvarez at least does not have some sort of freedom, overall to possibly take a fight like that. Although, of course, once again, I don't like how he handled the Benavidez situation, but it is what it is. But anyways, that being stated, overall, that pretty much is about it. I think that this is an embarrassing move by Gervonta Davis. Just my personal view of it, and that's really all I got for today. But thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to y'all later. Let me know what y'all think.